Monday, October 4th, Facebook and Instagram are gone. You can't help but assume it's got something to do with the interview on 60 Minutes last night about Facebook knowingly and intentionally getting people in feedback loops of misinformation and propaganda. So, we'll see what comes of that. I think it's kind of hilarious, except for all the small businesses that have their only online presence as a Facebook page, which isn't really smart to begin with. I realize that they're free, but it doesn't really cost that much to set up a website. It's pretty easy to do with things like Squarespace, and throwing all of your online presence into something that you don't have control over is not necessarily the smartest business decision to make. But anyway, so I feel bad for those folks anyway. And whatever it is, the $160 million a minute in advertising that Facebook is losing, it's okay. If it comes back online, I'm sure it'll bounce back. But our girl Meghan McCain has been using Twitter a lot. She wrote in the Daily Mail another article, real infuriated about college students following Krysten Sinema into a washroom and trying to elicit an answer from her about why she is blocking this legislation. And although I don't necessarily agree with the tactic, I don't, and I'm not really sure whether or not Krysten Sinema needed to use the washroom and why she chose to go into a public washroom when she was being followed by aggressive student protesters, other than maybe she knew that this would be the story, that she got followed into the bathroom and the story wouldn't be about why is she blocking legislation that's going to help millions and millions of people, which really should be the conversation. It's certainly the Republican talking point, that this is terrible behavior. And Meghan made the point at the end of her article that we've seen Democratic violence against Republicans before, and being accosted in public, but this is the first instance of Democrat on Democrat crime or violence. What about the violence that the GOP commits on women daily through the laws that they pass? The violence that the GOP commits against people of color, against immigrants every day? What about the violence that Republicans committed against the Capitol police officers on January 6th? What about the fact that she doesn't have an answer? Krysten Sinema doesn't have an answer for why she won't support this bill, and doesn't have a counterpoint of what she will vote for, what she will support. And had she maybe at any point prior to walking into that public washroom given some sort of explanation for why she refuses to even negotiate about helping millions of American people, maybe she wouldn't have been put in that position. And it, doesn't she have some sort of a safety team? She's a United States senator. So where were they? This just feels like a little bit of a setup to try to get some sort of sympathy for her, that she was followed into a washroom. And their tagline, what if if Republicans followed AOC into the washroom? I think she's probably smart enough not to get caught in a public hallway using a public washroom in front of an unfriendly crowd. But I'll bet if it did happen, there'd be a whole bunch of deplorable Republicans cheering the event. And I don't see people cheering the fact that Krysten Sinema was followed into a washroom. But the problem is it changes the whole story. And the story is, why is she an obstructionist fucktwit?